There are a bunch of different signs of recovering from exercise. So let's put that in first of all. We've got kind of signs of recovery. And by the way, I often feel like sort of stating this here. Make sure you've got a bit of an awareness of EPOC and also the origins of fatigue as you take this session, because it's something that I will lean on at times here. But first of all, that was meant to be a yellow colour. There are physiological signs of recovery, okay? So if we have experienced fatigue, for example, there are certain physiological signs that the body is recovering. So what are these? Well, we have a decreased lactate level. Relate this back to your lactate inflection studies, for example. Lactate level will fall. We'd also expect, therefore, that pH would rise back to its homeostatic levels. We'd also expect that we'd have a decrease in breathing rate once we are recovering. Now, I put that first, okay? It's important we state that happens first. As soon as we stop exercising, our breathing rate will start to fall before we get a decrease in breathing depth. So one of the points I want to make there is breathing rate falls during recovery faster than depth does. Tidal volume stays higher for longer. We also have a steep fall in heart rate, okay? So our heart rate, now obviously we've looked at that in relation to EPOC, and particularly the alactacid or fast component of EPOC. And we also have the resynthesis of certain structures. So we have the resynthesis, and by the way, I don't know if you can hear it very well, but there's a tree surgeon with a massive chainsaw near me doing my head in. But anyway, we get the resynthesis of ATP within the muscle cells. We also get the resynthesis of phosphocreatine. We also get the resaturation than resynthesis, but of oxymyoglobin, okay, which is the structure within muscle cells which can both store and carry oxygen to the mitochondria. So that's what we expect to see there. Meanwhile, we also have psychological signs of recovery. So this is more kind of like feelings, thoughts, psychological, cognitive experiences. What would they be? Well, first of all, when we begin to recover, especially if we fatigue, we experience relief. We also experience a sense of achievement, assuming that's what we wanted to do, to get to that level of sort of exhaustion. Then obviously a sense of achievement. Sometimes this can be quite thrilling. We can also experience a sense of preparedness. So this could be, obviously, I'm recovering, I'm ready to go again, but it could just be I'm ready to train again in the next session because I've been doing the work I need to do. Now, we would also get a feeling of completion. This is assuming we actually complete our performance or our training or our rep or our set, but we get a feeling of completion. So think about the last time you were on some kind of weights device and you lifted the last rep of the last set. You probably got those sorts of senses, right? It's something you probably experienced. But we also have what are called symptomatic, don't forget that P in there, symptomatic experiences. And what do we get? We get a decrease in muscle pain, more of which in a few moments' time. We get a decrease in muscle pain. We might experience a decrease in nausea, especially if we were working a lot at lactate threshold. And we might, and again, same thing, we might get a decrease in dizziness. So these are, in essence, the signs of recovering. We are recovering. We fatigue, but we are beginning to recover. We are either going to go again or we're going to go and have a good old rest and a cup of tea, especially where I live in the world. But those are those are signs for us. Now, what I want to do at this point is I want to start to look at nutritional strategies for recovery. Now, I think this is where a lot of you will really enjoy kind of this study and thinking about what is good and bad about different ways to recovery. And I'm going to say here, we're going to evaluate. Now, remember, when we're evaluating things, we're looking for strengths, we're looking for weaknesses, we're looking for conclusions. That's what we're thinking about. So first of all, let's think about water. So water clearly is a post-fatigue mechanism. That's obvious. If we've done something really hard, then obviously we're going to pretty much always drink something, often water. It's critical. That's what we're saying. Now, one of the things that we want to mention here, that water, even though it's really good for us, it does not address electrolyte loss. So, for example, electrolyte loss. So, for example, if we are hyponatremic and we've got low sodium in the blood after, that's going to be an issue for us. Therefore, it should be considered that hypertonic drinks are useful to consider post-exercise. So hypertonic, additional electrolytes above body level, these could be well considered. Secondly, we want to start to look at our macronutrients. So I'll drag over here and I'm going to talk about the different macronutrients and how we might want to be considering these post-exercise. Remember, this is about recovering. So first of all, I want to talk about protein. And lots of you, I'm sure, will use protein supplementation. So how do we do that? How do we do it well? Well, post-exercise, we're looking for 20. By the way, these two figures are accepted in different literature. 20 to 30 grams of protein seems to be the optimal dose. And what this is going to do is post-exercise, by the way, it increases protein synthesis. So remember doing all that stuff about ribosomes and breakdown into amino acids, rebuilding proteins at the ribosomes. That process will do better here. But we get an increased protein synthesis, especially with, and I wish it wasn't true, but especially with animal protein. Now, I'm not trying to convince anyone who's a vegetarian or vegan that they shouldn't be. You can be very healthy in that state as well. But in terms of pure adaptation process and recovering from exercise, animal protein is particularly effective. Now, we also want to be thinking about carbohydrates. And again, we've covered this in a little bit of detail in other sessions, but I just kind of want to use a reminder. The minimum we need for healthy living of carbohydrates is 0.7 grams per kilogram of body mass per hour. So that is a good guiding principle for us. However, the other thing you want to be considering, and that's post-exercise, by the way, but the other thing we want to be considering is that on average, the ideal amount of carbohydrates, training or not, is 8 to 12 grams per kilogram. Oh my goodness, that noise behind me, per day. Okay, so obviously we could be multiplying those figures by our body weight in kilograms, and that is what causes full replenishment. So if we deplete our glycogen stores, that is the amount that we need to resynthesize that. But other things about carbohydrates, you also want to consider that they need to be eaten, or I suppose it could be drunk, within 2 hours of exercise, and the sooner the better. And the other thing is a really nice term for you to use. It can lead to what's called supercompensation, which is not what you get if you experience whiplash in a car after a car accident. No, supercompensation is when you actually store greater levels of glycogen than you had in the body before because you have depleted and trained in that scenario. Now, finally, I want to talk to you about creatine monohydrate. Now, there's a few things you probably already know from the name of what I've just put on the screen, or I'm putting on the screen now. You probably realise creatine monohydrate relates to the phosphagen system, the ATPPC system. But creatine monohydrate, first of all, it's really popular. Secondly, as I record this, it is a legal sports supplement in, as far as I know, all sports. And what it does is it leads to an up arrow, a growth in intramuscular CP, or creatine phosphate concentration. So in essence, this supplement causes us to store greater amounts of creatine in the muscle itself. And why is this good? Well, we get faster recovery. Think about a football player, a games player, a faster recovery from explosive bouts, okay? Also, we get an increased length of explosive bouts. So, for example, someone who needs to sprint repeatedly is going to be really helped with creatine because they will be able to go past that 10-second threshold to 12 to 14 seconds of explosion and be able to recover from that faster. We say 50% in 30 seconds and 2-3 minutes for full replenishment. And here we're saying this could actually be quicker depending on the use of this supplement of creatine monohydrate. And I just stress this popularity, it's really big in elite football. So if you're into your Premier League football or your La Liga or whatever it is that you enjoy watching, you are watching performers, some, if not all of which, are using creatine. Now then, last one, I want to talk to you about polyphenol-rich foods. Now, first of all, we are talking about those classically healthy. We are talking about fruits. We are talking about veg. We are talking about cereals. Now, why is this stuff good? It's because it is an antioxidant. Okay, so if we take those, I suppose, you can make an argument, maybe more natural examples such as some more natural examples, can't think of the word I want to use, but what they do, and this is an interesting term, they mitigate inflammation. Okay, so where swelling might be more common, especially post heavy exercise bouts, that's a really nice way of minimizing that. Naturally, organic was the word I was trying to think of earlier. And what this is really good for, it's really good for intermittent performers. Remember, intermittent performers are performers that will work hard, have breaks, work hard, have breaks. So think about people like games players, for example. Intermittent sports. Think about things that are sprint, stop, go again. Going to be excellent. And one of the things they're really good for is down arrow. They reduce EIMD. Okay, and this is exercise induced muscle damage. So fruit and veg is really important to make sure that we can resist and discourage EIMD. Thank you.